Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm the Shotgun Shogun, and this is the first episode of the Final Stop podcast. I am joined here with Deity and Reddos, and we're gonna be talking about Star Rail. I actually really didn't think of how to start this. I just came up with the name the other day, and then I was like, "Hey, I know I talked to Red back in closed beta about how we needed to do a podcast, probably around the end of the closed beta, and then we never did." And then I was like, "Man, I should message Red and maybe do like a hey, the game is coming out podcast," because I had talked to him about it. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna wait until the game comes out and we have some stuff to talk about. But Deity, go ahead and introduce yourself for the individuals who may be watching or listening to this that may not know who you are.
Hello, my name is Deity, or Mitch. I go by Deity on Twitch and everything else, online alias, whatever. But I got into gachas with Fate Grand Order. I found Epic 7 later on, and Epic 7 became my main game. But now that I found this, I'm hoping that this can kind of either coincide with Epic 7 for me or take over it for me. Because Star Rail is kind of the game I've been waiting for
It's
for a
true.
long time.
Yeah, also, fun fact, Deity is also a PewDiePie lookalike. But Red, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, what's up, guys? My name is Red. I'm a Twitch streamer at Reddos or twitch.tv/Reddos double underscore. I'm also an Epic 7 player and also had a gateway wipe. It's kind of similar to Deity in that I got into FGO very early, and I do actually look to transition into Honkai Star Rail, and that's pretty much it.
So it sounds like all of us got into Fate Grand Order, somehow transitioned into Epic 7, and now we're transitioning into Honkai Star Rail. Is Fate Grand Order just like a huge gateway drug into gacha games for those who like started prior to Genshin Impact? Because like I've always said in the past that I feel like Genshin Impact was the World of Warcraft of mobile games, bringing in the normies. But it feels like almost everybody who has been in gacha for a minute at one point or another, and typically started like with Fate Grand Order and then moved into other things.
Yeah, I know for me, it started because I watched Fate Zero at one point, and I was like, there's got to be a game for this. And then, Fate in general,
Yeah.
and it kind of just stuck, man. As soon as I found it, I did not know what I was getting into, but now that I'm here, I guess it's fine.
That's true. You know, it's one of
Pain.
those generational things, I think, right? Because like you'll have a lot of people that are going to be coming over to Star Rail where Genshin was like their first game, and you know, they probably played Genshin and then tried out like a bunch of other stuff, and now they're coming over to Star Rail. But you know, for all of us older folks are a pre-Genshin era, you know, a lot of us dabbled in the Fate Grand Order. But yeah, no, actually, and you know, both of you, I met both of you through Epic 7. Me and Deity got a little bit of a history. You know, this isn't the first podcast that me and Deity have been on. So you know, I've been watching Deity. I've been watching your streams because you pretty much go live like right when I'm like, all right, guys, I'm gonna call it and I'm gonna go work on some videos, and then it's like, oh, Deity's live or Deity went live, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna watch Deity for a little bit, but man, you have been absolutely just consuming this game. And did I hear like last night that you're like, I'm gonna just start like another account or two?
Okay, so I didn't play the closed beta, so I feel like going into video games, if I know too much about the game, it's going to take a lot of enjoyment out of it for me. So I just skipped the closed beta because I like when this game comes out, I want to know life it, and it's going to be the only thing I do for a little bit. And I'm so glad I did because whenever I played through it the first time, I didn't have any knowledge of anything. I didn't know any character, so I have so much that I'm learning the game mechanics, the combinations of teams and everything. It just made the game so much fun for me.
Yeah,
And I
for
already
me.
started a new account, by the way. I'm playing it right now.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess like, so the thing is, right, is I clocked a lot of hours in the closed beta, and like I know like there were a bunch of people in the closed beta that just went super hard, right? They like skipped story, They, refreshed every day. They pushed everything that they could. For me, I think at the end of the closed beta, I had easily 160 plus hours into the game, and like that was just streaming, right? Well, at the time I was streaming 24/7, so like we would just do stuff and hang out and talk about things, and just do simulated universe with the boys and stuff like that. But like I felt like at the end of the beta, you know, I was I was even more hyped for the game coming out because yeah, sure, did I like read most of the story? I mean, I didn't finish all of the side quests or anything like that because I was like, oh well, leave some of these for the for the live game. I'm obviously going to go through all of them and get all the achievements, all of that stuff. Um, but I found myself like even after 160 hours, I wasn't like, well, yeah, I saw everything. I'm good to go. It's going to take it didn't really take any of the enjoyment out. And even as I'm going back through, like I know, and this is kind of something interesting that I noticed too. And Red, maybe you've noticed this as you go through, but there are small changes. Like as you go through the story, like there's some, I've seen some story changes, like where like maybe the story is cleaned up a little bit, or there's like a little bit of a different thing that happens. I mean, the core story for the most part is pretty much the same, but there's just like little small things that I've noticed that are either quality of life improvements or they were just something that maybe I didn't notice in closed beta. So it's almost like I'm seeing just the next iteration of the game. So I'm still enjoying going through everything and reading everything. Um, and just kind of noticing those little things.
There definitely is a tangible like improvement between iterations on CBT. You don't really notice it because I've been through 4 of them. So like you start to really catch things. There's like different dialogue. There's different. It's cleaned up translation. There's just so much that going on in like the smaller things that you don't notice until you actually like had played through it like a lot. Which I at this point I've played this game I don't know how many hours.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of big difference. It's actually pretty huge. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Speaking of one of the big difference things, and this will kind of segue into like my next thing here, is I thought that it was kind of interesting that in a lot of beta tests that I take part in, whether it be for mobile games or just like actual games, usually the final beta test is more or less the game that's going to be pushed out right now. Maybe there's like some small changes, some small tweaks, but how did you guys feel? And Deity, you might not know too much about this.
Yeah, I'm gonna know nothing.
But the fact that Mihoyo literally changed the modifiers and the skills of every single character and most of the light cones and modified the stats on the relics, they changed everything the day the game came out.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of used to it because of the way they treat Honkai Impact betas. It's very, very similar in that there's actually some pretty drastic changes in terms of balancing between like one iteration of a beta and then into the live. They're very, very good about making sure everything's balanced when it comes out, or if how they see their vision of the game.
So that's kind of interesting, right? Coming from, the 3 of us come from Epic 7, where the B word's not something that we really know anything about, because like, when it comes to Epic 7, balance is it's either cranked up to 12 or literally gutted to the point where it's unusable. But when I was going through a lot of the numbers, the modification changes, the fact that they made it a little bit easier early game, right, for healers, for tanks, shields, and stuff like that, taking away a little bit of the like scaling off of HP and defense and adding it more to the flat side, really kind of like, I saw that and I'm like, wow. I'm like, these are actually good changes. I saw a lot of people that were like on the fence, or they thought that it was bad because they're like, oh well, they're nerfing this and it no longer scales onto this. And I'm like, actually, like I'm like, if you guys think about it, like there was one, I forget who it was, I think it was Gepard. We did the math, and like the amount of flat shield that they were putting onto his shield was equal to like 1800 defense. And it's like, bro, I'm like the point where you are having just an extra like 1800 defense is so far in the future that that's a bridge that we can cross there. So I feel like they really, like, a lot of these changes showed that they are not afraid to really take like some of that, you know, obviously the closed beta feedback and like the data and stuff like that, and just do massive overarching balance changes to a lot of the characters, whether it be good or bad, right?
Yeah, dude. I just know that it's like coming. Like again, I don't mean it. The Honkai side, you know, you see Genshin, and a lot of people they've gotten this side of like, hey, Mihoyo doesn't listen to us.
Yeah.
But like, I come from Honkai, and they do, in terms of like some of the balance, believe it or not. Like Genshin is a completely separate entity in terms of it, so it's gonna. I suspect that we'll have some feedback in terms of how strong units are.
Right.
I will say there was a particular change that I was bewildered about. I think Jinyuan in particular. Somehow he went for, he was like one of the highest AoE damage dealers, and he did get a net buff.
So
But I
here's
don't
one of the
click on
things,
that.
right? So like I kind of looked at that, okay? Because like on paper, when you just look at the just the straight up crit damage that he got, um, you'll think, oh wow, this guy got just a straight up buff. But they nerfed a lot of his traces. So previously, like his traces gave him extra lightning damage, which for you know, that's just like extra damage like on top of, you know, it's like a different damage modifier, right? So it's like how
Okay,
in
yeah.
Epic 7 you have like, you know, scaling damage, which is outside of like attack plus scaling damage, then crit damage. So lightning damage, you would want to say, is kind of like, take like Alencia's HP scaling damage, right? So
Yeah,
lightning
yeah.
damage is just like an extra modifier. So they absolutely gutted his lightning damage on his traces and replaced it with just attack percent. So I think
Okay.
that like
Yeah.
overall, because that's what I thought too, because like I saw it
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like,
I can see it too.
bro, I'm like, this guy was already busted. Which, I mean, to be fair, not only is he really good damage wise, but I think when it comes to the characters in Honkai Star Rail, it's whether or not how hot they are. Like, let's be real. And
Yeah,
the
yeah. True.
moment,
Let's be real. Yeah,
I mean,
I
the
agree.
moment I saw Lion Daddy and I saw his ultimate, where he's like, oh, I just summon a god with a giant glaive and he just absolutely dumps on everything. I'm like, bruh, I need
Dude,
this. I need this guy. And then, like, yeah, I saw his skills and I'm like, yeah, he just summons like a lightning god and it just yeets on things and it's really good. But like, so that's like one of the things. And, you know, this can segue into like the next topic here, of how do you two, and I'll ask you first, Deity, because since you
Okay.
really don't know too much.
Yeah, I've had to sit back on this
Yeah,
conversation so far.
no, it's perfectly fine. Like, I'm a huge numbers nerd. I always have been. Whenever like I see the modifiers in Epic 7 and everything like that, I'm like, bruh. I'm like, oh, I gotta elbow deep into this,
Yeah.
like damage by the numbers. Where's my math
I remember.
calculator? All that stuff. But day one tier lists.
Yes.
Oh my god.
As a player who didn't know really anything going into this, did you look at the day one tier lists and how do they hold up?
Okay, so the only time I looked at the tier list was my first pull I did. I got Sampo, and I was like, damage over time character. He looks fun. I don't know how he's gonna be. I don't remember who tier list it was. I don't want to name people, but I think they said that that Sampo. They were saying that he looks pretty bad compared to all the other characters. Like one of the worst of the 4 stars. So like, well, that sucks. And then I pulled Bailu as a 5-star, and I looked at tier list again, and I saw her up there at the top. Everyone's praising her. But when I pulled her, I was like, this got to be the Chi-Chi of this game. No one's got to want this character, right? But then once I saw that she's actually really good, I was like, okay, my account has some potential because I have the best healer for early game. So, or well, debatably the best healer. I think she just is.
Yeah.
But that's the only time I
that's
looked at
true.
tier list.
That's fair. How do you think that it holds up though?
Most of the information I've saw of people rating characters hasn't been that great, but the problem is I think most of these tier lists are trying to rate at like a high game level that nobody's been at.
Yeah.
So I really don't think anyone knows what they're talking about, to be honest. But mostly everything they've said is kind of like they rated Serval pretty high, but early game Serval, I'm level 38 on my main account. I've been playing nonstop. I missed day one too, so I'm kind of behind actually. And I have like gear. My gear's pretty dang good already. I got really lucky on gear and pulls. But Serval, I can't get to her to be useful at all. I don't understand her kit. Maybe that's just a player difference. That it is what it is. But a lot of people had her rated as like one of the best 4-stars that I saw on tier list. And I was like, I don't get this at all because every other 4-star I have is better. So I'm gonna guess that most tier lists are pretty bad right now, and it's gonna take like 2 weeks to a month to get like a proper tier list out.
That's fair. What about you, Red?
Yeah, so I looked at, and I think a lot of early tier lists really were based on like pure damage. There's no utility taken involved. I believe that like everybody saw big number and they instantly think that like, hey, this is tier 0, this is tier 1, this is like, I'll give an instance. Clara was probably mid-range of the AoE DPS, and a lot of people don't rate her that highly. But I'm gonna be honest, I think into the later game, when you start to get really good gear and you start to get like maybe like her light cone that gives her like pseudo lifesteal, it's like basic.
Yeah.
You're gonna start seeing her solo things. Like she's gonna be literally just like an absolute machine. I'm pretty sure she's going to be damn near unkillable. I'm sorry for cursing, but
Oh, you're fine. We're long enough into the YouTube video that we don't get penalized for that.
Okay, yeah, but like it's an example. A lot of people talk about Clara and they rate her low because she doesn't have high AoE damage. But the thing is, they don't take into account that she's unkillable.
Right.
Like once you get a certain subset of gear, you get a healer, maybe you want March with her. And so I see a lot of these early tier lists rating based on this theoretical damage simulation that I know, don't get me wrong, they're useful, but they don't say the whole story.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's just pretty much all I think about tier lists. People said Ting Yun was bad before in CBT3, before people actually started rating her.
Bro, I had no clue why anybody would have thought that Ting Yun was budget Bronya or like mid-tier. Like, first off, she's a Fox girl, so that's triple S just by itself. Yeah. I mean, so my take on a lot of the tier lists are that most of them are bad, and everybody just tried to push out a tier list as fast as possible to get clicks or engagement. And I actually saw like a lot of tier lists from people that never played the closed beta, and they were just going off of another tier list. So it was like 3 tier lists removed from the original tier list. And to Deity's point, a lot of people say that Sampo is bottom tier, garbage tier, completely useless. But and I actually fell into that trap, right? Because I was watching looking at some tier lists and stuff like that, and like I never really got to play with Sampo because I didn't have him in closed beta. And so when I was going through like doing unit guides and looking at all their kits, I looked at Sampo's kit and I'm like, wait. I'm like, this guy's pretty good. I'm like, not only does he have a multi-hit skill, which is really good for shredding toughness bars, I'm like, but he does a ton of dot damage, which as far as I'm aware, dot damage doesn't worry about defense, because it seems like every time I put a dot on anything in particular, the defense, like, it does the same, whether it's like, one of those shieldy boy robots or like a big, like the archer thing. I really don't know. We can't see the defense on anything really. And like, unless somebody just pulls that data out of nowhere, it is,
That's been my experience too. Dot damage seems to be kind of set, but also a lot of people don't know this, but whenever you break a character, your like normal type characters, your physical characters can do physical or normal dot damage as well. A lot of people are not aware of that, but so whenever you're doing simulated universe and you get damage over time, ones that pop up and you're like, I don't have any dots. You always have dots as long as you're breaking characters. So
Yeah.
keep
So
that in
like,
mind when you're doing
yeah, I think
simulated.
it's quantum, wind, fire, physical, ice does dot damage. I think imaginary is the only one that doesn't apply a dot. I think it does break damage and then it applies something else, but almost all the rest of them apply dots. And from my testing, I have to do some more testing. I did some testing today on like the break effect, which everybody was big mad because in beta, break effect affected the toughness bar and how fast you would break the toughness bar. But now they changed it, and now the break effect only seems to affect like the dots and how much break damage you do and stuff like that. So I got to work a little bit more around that. It seemed like some people were mad at the very beginning, like that
Yeah.
had changed. But at the same time, like, bro, in beta, you could put break effect on Asta and like just keep things
I was
locked
literally just
down.
on her.
Yeah,
It's a segue, dude. When Asta, like on these tier lists, is really low rated for no reason.
yeah,
That character, when you could control where that bounce goes on that E,
Mhm.
is like breaks shield like a mofo, dude. It is
Oh, yeah.
actually insane.
and not even that, but like even in like beta, right? Like if you were just up against a single boss which had, fire weakness, which is pretty common, Asta just shredded their toughness bar. Yeah, like you throw the 4-piece set on and then just immediately shred it in like one skill and just keep them completely locked down. It was really big. And like, so with tier lists, I have this litmus test, right? How do they rate Asta? How do they rate Arlen? And like off of those two things, usually I can determine whether or not the person knows anything about the game. Like I saw a lot of people really rating Arwen, like even in closed beta before he got nerfed, they were rating him really, really low, and their like whole point was, oh well, you need to build a whole team around him in order to make him really good. And I'm like, wow, you mean like every team building game that has literally ever been made? It's the same argument in like Epic 7 when people are like, oh well, this character can't 1v4 the other team and needs 3 homies to protect him. And I'm like, bruh, for reals?
Yeah, that's this whole game is team
Yeah.
composition building. That's what makes, I feel like every character right now, there's very few characters, to be honest.
Right.
I wish there would have been more. Only having 4 and 5 stars really limits your character pool.
It's true.
And in a turn-based game like this, like the more characters you have, the more combinations you have to try to experiment with different things. So I'm kind of sad about how few characters are. But the thing is, every single character in this game, because of Simulated Universe, has their place.
Mhm.
And I don't think people really understand that Simulated Universe is like the whole game for right now, for probably the next couple months.
Oh yeah.
Because once you reach Equilibrium 3, you unlock or level 2 of every single world 1 through 6.
Yep.
So you have 6 worlds to complete. And that's going to be your main way of like ranking up from there and getting a bunch of rewards, because you start running out of rewards pretty late level or pretty early level, that you can't do any quests, you can't do anything, or to get anything. You're just stuck doing your daily energy refresh. And
yeah, I mean, you do have Forgotten Halls for like pushing content, and like after you break through the first Forgotten Halls, you unlock Memory
Hard
of
mode.
Chaos. You go unlock
Yeah.
hard mode, which is, dude, I'll tell you what. I remember seeing all these YouTubers that were, and I won't name any in particular, but they're like, bro, well, I'm just gonna complete the entire game in like the first 2 weeks, and then whenever anything comes out after that, then I'll just come back on for like a day or two, beat it, and then go from there. And I'm like, good luck. I'm like, man, I remember when I got through all of Forgotten Halls, first off, when I got to the point in Forgotten Halls where you need to have 2 whole teams, I'm like, wait, what do you mean I need to have 2 teams? I got this one team of homies. I'm like, they're really good. They clear everything. And then I'm like, I have to have a second team?
The 2 team is so fun. I've almost cleared all the Forgotten Hall right now.
Yeah.
But the 2 team one, the biggest problem is the Forgotten Hall level I'm on, that characters are like level 60 or 70.
Mhm.
I think they're level 70. So you do literally 0 damage.
Yep.
But the 2 team comp thing going into that is one of the most fun things in the game right now.
Yeah, and it kind of shows off like so I've seen a lot of people talk about how Gepard's bad, right? The thing is, Gepard in Forgotten Halls, when you have to have 2 teams, Gepard can single-handedly make it so that you aren't really affected by not having Bailu and Natasha. You know, because normally you would run like a tank, a sub DPS, a healer, and then a DPS. Whereas, like, if you run like a Gepard or something along those lines, you can run a buffer and 2 DPS to just burn through while Gepard throws his shield down and protects everybody, right? Allowing you to just have Natasha and like a normal turtle team in the second one, and allows for more flexibility. And you know, the crazy thing is like a lot of these people, they're judging stuff based off of like the story, which, like, let's be real, in the story, I haven't ran into a boss that I'm not just like, I'll just throw whatever at it and I win because it's the story. And you know, this game is just like, man, you know, even like the last boss and you know all that stuff, they make it very very easy to get through the story. Now, like you said, with Simulated Universe, that's going to be your content, right? Like, and the fun thing too with Simulated Universe is it's a lot of fun to just continue to play through because you can go through and do like goofy builds. You can do like a nihility buff build or like, oh, preservation, or, you know, if I want to go fast and farm it, I'm just like hunt, everything hunt super fast. Let's just burn through this. Take 17 turns.
Dude,
yeah.
World 6 using the hunt one, I had everything with speed buff. I took like I took like 30 turns before the World 6 boss had her first turn. It was one of the coolest things.
Yeah, like, so in beta, one of my favorite ones, so I had Welt back in beta, and I would use main character, Herda, Tingyan, and Welt. And I would go, like, hunt until I got that one buff that every 5 hits freezes stuff. And so you would do hunt, so it's like, oh, it pushes you forward. And then you got the one where if you hit a unit that's frozen, it puts them into like super deep freeze stasis, which like further delays them. And I'm like, oh, well, they literally just don't get a turn ever. And I'm just like, bep, auto. And it just would just do that. And they break out of it. And then they'd immediately go back into it. And it was just so fun and enjoyable. And the thing is you can just do all kinds of stuff with that. Like, it's just like, you go in, you're like, oh, I want to just do this weird build. Let's just, because one of the things I want to do, and if there was a Quara banner up right now, I would probably wail on it to get her light cone and get her up. I want to do a run through of Simulated Universe with just Quara solo. Like, that's, yeah.
I get it, dude. She has all the makings of it too.
Dude, it would be so much fun.
Build her like 0 speed, but have you like looked at her, like I know she'll get like energy on hit, and she has cleanse on hit, and she'll like all that stuff together. She's a solo queen, I guarantee it.
Oh, it's gonna be this. It's like my long-term goal with her. I'm super excited for that. But like, to go back to like tier lists, you know, to Deity's point, there's not a lot of characters in the game at the moment, and I think that it by itself is like, well, I mean, every character kind of has a place. Like, you can build every character, and it's like, the other thing too with tier lists, right, is like, it, you know, to Red's point, it doesn't take into account utility. It doesn't take into account, it's always in a vacuum. This is neutral damage. It doesn't take into account that, oh, I'm going up against a boss that has a wind break bar. I should probably bring somebody that can break wind, or I'm going to have a bad time. You know, the elemental synergy between Himiko, Hook, and Asta, and stuff like that. And so I think a lot of people, to Red's point, just see, oh, number big, triple S. Oh, everybody and their mom says that Bronya is the best unit in the entire game by a mile, which I mean, I agree, because, well, it's a support character.
Kind of is.
You know, yeah, well, I've always thought that in any game, if you're going to re-roll, like, going with a support character is the best thing to future-proof your account anyways, because you know,
her cleanse is everything. I feel like her cleanse is what's going to make her just always be usable too.
Yeah, you know, one of the things,
turn push, buff.
You know, one of the things with cleanse that actually makes Natasha a bit better than Bailu, because you were like, oh, well, Bailu is just the best healer, is the Bailu has no cleanse. And on things like Simulated Universe with Kafka, where you kind of need to have cleanse, Bailu kind of falls a little bit short. Plus, like, sometimes the bounce is a little bit unstable, but like nobody really, like, nothing I've ever seen really talks about like any of these things. And I think that's like it's weird because like, coming from like an E7 standpoint, right, where we have so many characters, like when you're not talking about like team synergy or how this character stacks up against this other character in like a certain situation, and this one over here, stuff like that, like it just always kind of surprises me that people are so kind of like narrow sighted on that. And like I never played Genshin. I played like 5 hours of Genshin. I don't really know much about Genshin. Are like the Genshin characters just like that so one dimensional that there's not like a ton of synergy? Because it does feel like a lot of these content creators are kind of coming from Genshin, and like they're not talking about like this extra team building.
It's weird because Genshin actually has quite a bit of team building. Actually, you go like there was so many. I don't remember. It was kind of like when Raiden got brought into the game, Raiden Shogun.
Mhm.
Everybody was saying like there's a lot of people that were saying she was bad, like legit, because she wasn't like a damage dealer. But the amount of support she brought to the team, and then somebody from China came up with this team that was like, it was like international, but with Raiden in it.
Mhm.
It was Raiden, Bennett, Singju, and somebody else, and it just absolutely rolled all of Abyss. And from there, Raiden became a meta character, and then she got it. If you got her C2, she was also crazy. But like, there's a lot of inventive people in the Genshin community, which is why I'm so surprised that people would think one-dimensionally.
Well, do you think it's
Yeah.
because the game is like fairly new, and a lot of the people that are like making guides and making tier lists and all of this stuff are just in like trying to hit the hype, and instead
Yeah,
of
they're just
like,
trying to rush
yeah,
everything.
which I
One,
feel is like such a thing when it comes to like gotcha games in general. It's always the like day one, who do I re-roll for? Here's my day one tier list. And then, those people end up moving on to like Wuthering Waves. And then you have the people with like the
Yeah,
actual
cycle.
information that stick around, right?
Tier lists are always that, okay. It's I'm not calling anybody out here, but we all know tier list is just like that lazy content where you're just like, it's gonna get views, and I think that's why they do it.
they make a
And
lot of
then-
money. Yeah.
They make they're a people pleaser. They really are. It sucks to
My
say.
tier list is always how hot is the character, right?
Yeah, I see that, actually.
Character feat tier list, stuff like that. I've always told people, I'm like, look, I'll have my opinion on like characters and whether or not you should use them, stuff like that. I'm like, but a tier list is always super subjective to like that person. I mean, let's be real, right? E7, if you're a cleaver, you're going to have a different tier list than a turn 2 player, and so like in this, you're going to be like, oh, well, there's only 20 characters, but I have to put out a tier list so that everybody knows. I mean, for me, it'll always be Fox Girls at the top. I don't even care what Yukong's kit is. I'm gonna pull for that.
I'm a Tamamo enjoyer. Based.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's like going on a subjective. I've actually seen like a content creator push, like they did this rhetoric that Hook is like the worst character in the game. I do want to see that. I say that I've like seen like stuff like that before,
which is insane because like in closed beta, I tell people all the time. Yeah, I'm like, bro, I had like, because we'll get an event with like expeditions where like you can finally flex on it, and I'm like in closed beta there was just a homie that did like 5 times the amount of damage that I did with like a Hook team. And like when you watched it, yeah, and like I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, this team is so speed tuned with just like a giga OP Hook with like the Flamesmith set. And I'm like, bro, I don't even know what's going on here, but this thing is doing so much damage.
It probably was a burn team. It probably was built around burn and then the Hook E6, I think.
Yeah, but the thing is too, though, is like it now, like it's even better because Hook has the Himiko support from extra burns, as well as the extra damage from Asta. And then if you use the light cone on Asta, it's going to just bring everything even higher. and like you run like wolf walk time on Hook, and you get like a couple like superimpositions on that, and like Hook can do some insane damage, and like I think that's one of the things that we're lacking, and I think that as time goes we will get a lot more people kind of looking into that. Like I can guarantee you right now there is probably nobody talking about how having flat attack substat on a piece of gear is probably going to be one of the best ones for any sort of attack character. They're going to be like, flat attack is bad, but like, I mean, what do you roll on a right side speed attack main stat ring? Oh, you roll speed, crit, flat attack, because I mean that's what you want on it, right?
Yeah.
So
I still have the Epic 7 mindset where in that last slot I want HP percent or defense percent, just add some survivability to that character.
yeah, well, I mean,
I
yeah,
don't think we're gonna have much one-shotting in this game. I
oh
could be
no.
wrong, but I feel like you're gonna have to be able to survive like a wave of 2 or hits. So I feel like you're always gonna need some survivability, because I'm already
Yeah.
kind of experiencing that with the squishy characters. I mean, Paylo's pretty squishy, Serval's squishy,
Yeah.
and even with my good gear on them, they still just get whopped at the beginning. So I'm not too sure how one-shot comps are gonna end up turning out.
So I mean, like realistically though, like I've seen like a handful of people ask about, like they're like, oh man, when's the man Tristan Wolf gonna come out with a one-shot comp for this? Then I'm like, for what? I'm like, for what? Like what farming? I mean, well, me and you were talking about it in chat earlier, Deity, but like I think like the real like the meta farming content is going to end up being how fast can you clear simulated universe?
Yeah, that's going to be everything. If you're going to be a person who does play this game more,
Yeah.
simulated universe farming is going to be everything. So it's going to be, I'm curious who the first person is that's going to find the best farming route for it, because that's the only way to get the relic EXP.
Yep. Well, I mean, like I said, man, I did a lot of it back in closed beta, and for me, it was well. Like, here's the other thing too, is I've seen so many people trash on Herda, and like for farming, for speed farming,
Oh yeah, for farmers,
Herda is absolutely nuts. But nobody thinks about that, which is weird.
All these characters with AOE access, just Himeko. Like they talked about Himeko's damage not being that amazing. I know she got buffed, but her farming capability is, if there's any kind of weak vulnerability on fire, is absolutely through the roof.
Oh yeah.
It's actually so insane.
Yeah, I when I was farming like Calyxes and stuff like that in beta, it was like Himiko, Herda, and then like whatever else, because you'd have somebody come in. I think I had like a decent single target, right? But like you'd come in, you'd break, Herda would do her thing, and then Herda would break, and then you would have Himiko come through, clear everything else, or use her ultimate, and it was just AoE devastation. And like the thing with Calyxes and stuff like that is it's going to be really fast, but like if you take simulated universe into account, right, you have like a whole blessing path of follow-up damage. So like you run Himiko with Quara's doing follow-up damage, Himiko's doing follow-up damage, Herda's doing follow-up damage, and you're just absolutely laying waste to pretty much everything on the board. And so it will be interesting to see, like, this is a good team for this, like and how kind of things move around, in the player perception of some of these characters, because I mean the game's been out for like
5 days.
5 days, and so there's definitely going to be a lot of people that were super wrong in their information a little bit down the road, for sure.
I will say I would be careful with Seele if I did have to be honest.
Why is that?
Because of Silverwolf. If her kit comes to, do you remember her?
Yes.
Yeah, her kit was pretty loaded in terms of quantum. I'm curious to see if we'll keep her kit going into actual release. I don't think we will. I think
that's another thing that I think is really funny, because I've already seen recommended videos of people that are like, is Blade the most OP character to ever come to the game? Should you pull Kafka? Is Silverwolf going to change everything we've ever known about everything that we've ever known? And I'm like, homie, you've got months before those characters even remotely come out. Like, you get to see them for like one fight in the actual game.
Yeah.
I'm like, they'll probably change. Like, they've got tons of time to change this. And then your video from before the game even came out, you know, clickbaiting people to see if like Kafka's good or whatever. And all the homies that are like, I'm saving for Kafka. And I'm like, you got a minute. Like, you're going to have a little bit of time before you got to worry about that. But you know, yeah, the argument is like, oh, do I pull for, you know, Sele, or do I pull for Jing, or what? Personally, I think the Jing banner is a little bit better because you have,
oh my God, that Jing
you know,
stacked.
yeah, you got
Xu
Ting
Shang.
Yun, you got Xu Shang, which, I mean, realistically, like, Sele's good. Sele's really, really good.
That was really good.
But if you've got another like really good single target DPS, like, it is what it is. I made it through everything for the most part without her. You know, I feel like this game is very similar to Fate Grand Order, right? Where if you don't have to pull these characters, you're going to be able to make it through with whatever characters you pull. It's really not that hard, right? Are you going to be doing like the super giga hard challenge quests with your free to play, your free to play account? Yeah, maybe eventually, right? But if you want to pull these extra characters, then it's pay for convenience, pay for ease of win, right? Because like I've seen people, they're like, oh well, the game's pay to win, and I'm like, but what do you win? Like,
you win PvE.
You win
enjoyment more.
Yeah,
like,
you know, you win going to Reddit and being like, haha, I have E6. I have E6 Sele, and the game is super easy.
Yeah, cool. I feel like pulling Sele is, if you're just getting in the game, I think it's a mistake pulling her early because she just trivializes the game. I think playing with the other characters to go through the game and pulling her later is more enjoyable experience, unless you just want to clear the game in 10 seconds.
To piggyback off that, I actually dropped Sele for that reason. I saw everybody was like using her. And this is actually the first time I've used Sele, actually, by the way, because I never got her in beta.
Same.
But yeah. And I was using her, and she was running town on everything, but I got bored because everybody's using her and everybody's talking about her. So I just ended up following on Hook. So I was like, I'm gonna try Hook.
Well, yeah. I used Sele. I got super lucky on my gear. So I got her to 130 crit damage. I got a quantum ring right away, a gold one.
Damn, nice.
And I got good speed boots, so she's like 132 speed, and she just obliterates everything. And I built her really high crit damage, low crit chance, because you can just boost your crit chance in Simulated Universe. So she just hits everything in there for like 20k. When she does crit on her ult, and everything just insta dies. And she's C0. I can't imagine if I had.
I will say, coming from Genshin, I made a mistake myself doing this. I actually went for C6 Eula. Now, don't get me wrong, it was more for aesthetic reasons than gameplay reasons. But I will say that same thing happened in Genshin, where I literally just trivialized the game to the point where I got bored and I ended up quitting, actually, because of that. Don't get me wrong, I could have tried something else, but it was just so easy after I just started using Eula that it trivialized it and made it so boring to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was kind of like my experience back in like my FGO days, right? Because like I was a notorious Giga Whale.
I remember. I actually watched during the FGO days, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I had everything, and I'm just like, all this stuff is super trivial. And then like I got to the point where I'm like, man, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna solo this with Mash. Or I'm just going to use Spartacus as my main DPS. And I'm like, man, homie out here pays like 45k for like an account to use 3 stars to have fun. I'm like, man, that's super backwards. But, you know, it was when I wanted to like be really lazy and just plow through something, like I could. But if I wanted to like make a meme video of like, oh, well, you know, I'm just going to solo this with, you know, King Hassan or something. And I guess like as a content creator, right? Like it's it's weird, and like I've had this discussion a couple times in chat that like from a content creator standpoint, sometimes you play these games a bit different, right? Like
Yes.
you pull on things differently as a content creator. Whereas like if I'm just playing a game, like there's actually a lot of gacha games that I play on the side that I don't stream because I'm like I don't even feel like I need to pull on anything. If I don't log in like 1 or 2 days, who cares? But like as a content creator, it shifts a lot of your perception on the game and like how you have to pull, because everybody wants to come in and they want to go, hey, how is this character? And if you don't have that character, it's hard to be like, well, here's my opinions on this character that I don't really have. So it's a little bit rough because it's like, yeah, I want to pull Sele, and then I use her, and then, to your guys' point, I'm like, wow, I took like 17 turns in a row and she just obliterated everything. I'm like, why do I even have any of the rest of these units here? But also at the same time, I want to find like interesting stuff like the whole March Quara cheese.
Yeah. Viewer
Yeah.
experience changes like that too, though. Like a new gacha player, like say this was their first gacha, when they were
Mhm.
watching, they are going to, if you have crazy stuff, like it's gonna hook them way more.
Oh yeah.
So that's why so many like content creators wail, because the newer people to the game, they're gonna enjoy that more versus the free to play content. Typically, free to play content's usually harder to get people in at first, but then later on it'll grow. But like for initial release, that's why so many content creators and streamers are just spending like $3,000 day one
Oh yeah.
and pulling everything because they can just show off. Because I have both experiences of you as a new gacha player playing FGO, watching you stream, and like the other XLI saw the other guys. I saw you guys with max K scopes, and that made me want to spend money so bad on the game and get to the point where I could do that kind of content, just turn one, clear stuff immediately.
Dude, I went back to FGO not too long ago and I looked at my account and I'm like, bro, I almost have like 4 maxed K scopes. I'm like, why do I even
I had
have
two
like a
after a
fourth
while.
one? I'm like, why did I even like pull that much to get to this point? Like, how did I get here? But yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I also think too that like, a lot of these people that are just dropping like thousands of dollars like immediately on the game are trying to like also hook those people that are free to play and want to live out their like their gotcha dreams of dropping $5,000 like on a banner vicariously through another person, or watching like the salt that comes from like not getting your Brynhilder in like 2,000 FGO pulls and then quitting the game for 3 years or something along those lines. But I also feel like as a content creator, it's like this weird balancing act, right? Because like with this game, for instance, like if you just rush through everything, you have like E6 of everything, and you get to the end, it's like cool, minus $6,000-7,000 and a lot of your enjoyment. It's like a lot of those people are going to be the same people that are going to be like, man, there's nothing to do because I spent $10,000, rushed everything day one, and now what? So it's really weird as like as a content creator, that fine balancing line.
I know for me, I've gotten to this weird state of mind that like I used to be a whale, obviously, on many games, but I kind of stopped because it actually ended up taking the uniqueness away from my account.
Mhm.
As in like, as in like I would have everything and I'd be able to have everything at my disposal, and then I would just be able to do whatever. But like at some point, I kind of was just like I kind of like just doing the like lower spend, and now I have like, hey, I got an E6 hook because I got like a massive amount of hooks on a Sele banner.
Yeah, that's how I was too. I got these 6 hook, and
There's
I've
just
already
so
built
many
her level
hooks.
50. She's fun.
But yeah, so now like it's like when you have that unique nature about your account, you start to like think about the game more, and you start to like enjoy what you have.
Yeah,
I don't
whenever-
know. It's kind of a weird state of mind.
I get it, because when everyone spends, everyone's account's the same, because they're going to take the thing that whoever X person who also spends says the strongest. So by not spending a smaller amount, you got to come up with your own way.
Yep.
Yeah,
because
it's kind of
there's
like
not
how an
those
Epic
people.
7, like how everybody has everything. It feels like.
Yeah, and everyone went
You know that?
speed gear because YDCB content creator followed him. and
Yeah.
everyone cleaves. Literally everybody.
It's kind of the same, but yeah. I definitely like to push like the unique part of people's accounts now. It's definitely my favorite aspects of these games now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I think that like in a PvE centric game, right? It's a lot easier to get away with like being more cheap to play and kind of focusing somewhat on the more unique aspects of the game, like coming up with like a more free to play way to get around a lot of things. Because, you know, while yeah, are the people who have E6 everything with like giga juiced out accounts and like have giant big numbers and flashy editing everywhere and drop $10,000 a banner, are they going to get a lot more views? Yeah, probably from all those people trying to like live vicariously through that. But I think like some of the more fun stuff for me has always just been like, hey, this is how I beat this free to play. Hey, here's my weird, goofy meme comp. You know, like, again, like I was saying, you know, being able to like just go through eventually, get the right gear, and just solo simulated universe with Clara. Like that is one of the goals that I have, you know, or
Yeah, we're both
yeah,
trained,
something
dude.
like that. So, I mean, it's when it comes to like that type of gameplay too, um, you know, it's I don't feel bad spending a little bit because I'm getting that enjoyment out of it. Whereas, like, obviously, in like PvP, if you want to make content, if you want to be at the end game of whatever, you have to spend. So it's like, man, switching over to like Honkai Star Rail has relieved a lot of like my RTA stress. Like,
I agree. I 100%
it's
agree, dude.
so chill.
It's elevated my mood to a good point because
Yeah.
like I've been streaming Epic 7 and it gets pretty infuriating, and then coming into a very chill experience where I get to do whatever I want while also doing things with characters I want to play. It's a better experience for
Yeah.
me, and it's really done a lot for my mood.
My RT experience is play, get mad, fight Spectre Tenebria. I fight Spectre Tenebria, lose. I pick Spectre Tenebria, I win. That's literally my RT experience.
Yep. Or my thing was always, oh, uh, you know, do everything perfect, 100% perfect draft, like good stats. I know what I'm doing. Oh, 15%ed. Oh, 3%ed.
Yep.
Oh, I lose. Okay, cool. Absolutely nothing I could do there, man. Super sweet. You know, so it's like coming over here. Not only that, but to harken back to what I said earlier, imagine having a whole plethora of characters that are Fox girls and you release none of them. Coming to a game
Literally.
where there is a whole planet full of Fox girls.
Well, they did it so everyone spends their resources first on all this stuff that they don't really want, but they want because everyone else has it, so that when the Fox girls come, they have to spend their real money to buy them.
Is that
Marketing
some
genius.
Brennus copium there?
I was so
Completely
mad.
forgotten.
I talked about Star Rail. I said one of my top comments of YouTube this year was, "Wow, it took 4 years for Epic 7 to give me nothing, but I've got two Star Rail Fox girls immediately."
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Yukong continued. Speaking of which, they're on your screen.
Absolutely, dude. I can't wait
I
until
can't-
they put
I can't
Yukong
wait
out.
to
Like
see
I
them all.
literally don't care what her kit is. Like her kit could be the most garbage kit, like F tier
Exactly,
kit.
dude.
Everybody on the internet collectively agrees that she is the worst character that Star Rail has ever put out. I don't care. I pull for her because
Absolutely.
she's super hot.
She is a beautiful woman, if you will.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a whole planet of them. And, you know, so like it'll be interesting. I think like the big thing for me, right? And like I've talked about this before too. I thought it was really funny that like there's a lot of people that were like really up in arms about Honkai Star Rail when it first came out. And they're like, this game is gonna die because it's turn-based. Nobody likes turn-based. Turn-based is super terrible. I hate the game because I hate turn-based games. And now you see like a whole lot of those people playing Honkai Star Rail and they're like, wow, I love this game. This game is fun. It's enjoyable. I've seen some people complain about the lack of amount of skills that you have, but I'm like, isn't that just this pretty much the same as like every other game? It's so
I will
weird.
say- Okay.
Oh,
my
go ahead.
bad. Sorry. I
No,
didn't
no, no,
mean
you're
to cut you
fine.
off. I will say I have seen a legitimate criticism in that sometimes, and don't mean all of the time, that sometimes the combat could be a little shallow in terms of how like it's like you just sometimes you'll just take an element and it'll break the bar and then it'll do. But I feel like as the game ages and as more mechanics are brought into like boss fights in particular, I think that that's gonna go away. I
You
think that
know,
there's going to be a lot more interesting
one thing that I
mechanics.
thought was really interesting with boss fights is that as you break their lives away, you go into different phases and different things happen. So like take
Yeah.
Svarog for example in simulated universe or just in general is like after you wipe out his first life, oh he starts summoning hands that lock down one of your dudes. And you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I
oh, well,
actually
like
love that
everything
fight, by
just
the way.
kind of changed, right? Or it's like, the Cocolia fight, or like in simulated universe, like fights like that, where it's like they have multiple lives. And like, because there were a lot of times when I was playing it, I wasn't prepared for the next phase, but then I
Yeah.
accidentally broke it into the next phase, and then it just completely screwed my whole thing up. And I'm like, damn it. I'm like, I wasn't
Yeah.
ready for this. Now I've got some big ass icicles hitting everybody. And I'm like,
Simulated
fuck,
Wolf
dude. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm not prepared. Oh, can we go back a second, please? And so like that's one of the things I've always enjoyed, and that was like one of the things I've always thought like Epic 7 could do with like bosses and like Labyrinth and stuff, is have these like different um mechanics that happen at things that literally completely change the fight. And it'll be interesting to see, down the road, hell, maybe something has like 5 phases or something like that, and like more phases. And it does take like a little bit of um it does take some strategy there in order like skill management, rotation. There's a lot of times where I'm just like zoned out and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just use my skill here. And then I don't look at my like action bar and I'm like, oh, my healer is next and I needed to heal, but I thought that I would have a skill point. Now I don't have a skill point, which harkening back to Arwen, the fact that like Arwen's really good is that his skill doesn't require a skill point. It just uses HP. So it allows for a little bit more flexibility in your skill points, which is why I
I,
think the Arwen was always pretty good.
I laughed about that because everybody was saying Arlen is this selfish DPS. And I was like, the absolute least selfish thing you can do as a DPS is
Yeah.
not take a skill point. That's
Yep.
literally the most unselfish thing you could possibly have. So
Oh
like,
yeah,
I never got
100%.
that criticism, dude. It made no sense.
That's why,
I was
like
like,
I said, man, I'm like that's a litmus test for me, man. I'm like, how do they feel about Sampo? How do they feel about Asta? And do they even know that Arwen doesn't use a skill point? Like, if they don't know any of those things and they think that Sampo and Asta are both bad, I'm like, dude, just they clearly haven't done any research into the game, stuff like that. Whereas for me, I'm like, bro, I need to, like, somebody came in earlier and was just talking about like the break effect mechanics, and I stopped everything I was doing to go, yeah, let's test this out. Yeah, let's throw some gear on somebody and see what the big difference is. And I think that that's like something that the game definitely needs. Like a lot of these early game guides are very like super like just the surface level, and I'm super looking forward to digging more into this. And I know like watching Deity and stuff like that, he talks about like how much he wants to make like team comps and stuff like that for simulated universe, and I'm super about that as well. I'm super excited for like optimizing and just doing all of that stuff. Like it's just so interesting to me. Even if I have to figure out what defense values are by like taking the same character with different gear into the same fight and just slapping it multiple times and going, "Oh, well, defense this is the defense." In like, cuz like I saw some guides early on and about like Seyway, and they didn't use her 4-piece quantum set with 10% defense pen. Well, it was bigger defense pen before they nerfed it, but like Man, coming from that E7 mindset, dude, I was like, Lil bro, how are you not going to use a defense pen set? I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
that pen is huge,
yeah,
man.
I'm
That's like a
like,
lot of damage
yeah, I'm just like, bruh,
statistically.
I'm like, just at defense pen, how would you not consider this like the absolute best in slot? I'm like, man, it's weird. It's definitely interesting seeing the diverse content creators coming from other games that don't know the gearing of Epic 7. Because I'd almost say that Honkai Star Rail's gearing system
It's
is
pretty much
so
seven.
much closer to like Epic 7 than like any other game that I've played. Like I don't know how it stacks up versus like Genshin, but
It's
like
quite similar,
yeah.
but it's it's quite similar to Genshin, but there's not a lot of times where you're gonna get effect res in particular, like stuff like that, like effect res, effect hit rate. Sometimes I don't think that those stats are in Genshin. It's actually very close to Epic 7.
You
Closer
don't even
to
have
Epic 7.
speed in Genshin, right? Like because there's no
I
point.
don't think so. I don't think so. There's no
Yeah.
speed
No,
at all.
energy regeneration
Yeah,
is the speed
Oh,
of
okay.
that game.
yeah. It's
Gotcha.
energy recharge.
I mean, I will say I'm not happy about having an additional right side piece. I'm like, bruh, why do I have 4 right side pieces? I need speed boots. I need crit chance chest piece now. Oh my
I think
god,
it's
dude.
fun because there's so few characters. The problem with Epic 7 is getting
Yeah.
those pieces. You have to roll speed on them.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you don't roll speed on them, if you roll high speed, there's like 50 characters use it. If you don't roll high speed, there's like 10.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, there's so few characters that even if it doesn't roll perfect, it will work very good. And then if you get the upgrade later,
Yeah.
cool.
That's why I
But
suggest like
gearing's so
early
easy.
and like mid game just farming musketeer. Because like the musketeer set is basically like, you know, the a speed set of this game.
Generalist.
It's a generalist
Generalist,
one
yeah.
and it's like I can use it on my support, I can use it on my DPS, I can use it on my tanks. It helps me move to a point where now I can specialize into, oh, I can start getting legendary stuff because like I don't really want to waste my time for my specialty stuff. Like I don't want to get the like, you know, the physical boxer set for Quara until I'm really gonna get some juiced up gear, right?
Yeah, dude.
You know, so I'm just gonna go generalist until I can like get a little bit higher of a trailblazer level and then really hammer out like, oh, I'm gonna get my quantum set for Sele, I'm gonna get my boxer set for Quara, I'll get a couple of firesmiths for like Hook and Himiko if I get Himiko, stuff along those lines. And so, you know, I will agree with you on that one though, Deity, is because there are so few characters, like, you know, having a piece that's like, oh, physical main stat, you know, on a planar ornament. Well, I mean, I can probably put that, I can find a spot for that on any of my physical characters, whether it's like the best one or not.
Yeah.
You know, I'll put it on there. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. But I mean, I will say like speed boot. The other thing too is speed's not as important in this
I
game.
saw-
And
yeah, I-
speed's
it,
insane.
it,
It's
it
good, but
depends. It depends on the unit.
yeah, I think
Clara
that'll
doesn't
be
use speed, for
interesting.
example.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to come down to like really speed tuning stuff because there's no speed RNG. So it's like your optimal setup with like a single target like a Sele or something is like Tingyun into Sele into Bronya so that you can just be like buff attack lap back around attack, and I think that'll be kind of interesting. But like I had a couple units that I didn't really worry too much about speed. Like I don't think that like you necessarily have to use it like because you want obviously like you would want your main character like when you have the tank to go after everybody, you know, stuff like that, like to put up the
Yeah.
shield before enemies. So as long as you go before your opponent to put up your shield and stuff and support, I think that's still fine. But like you can get away with like not like optimally rolling like the most giga speed substats on everything, right?
Right now, I have speed boots on pretty much everybody except for Bailu.
Hmm.
Bailu, I
It-
just built with like 3,000 something HP. So
Dude,
she
a lot
survives forever.
of units are going to be ran on speed boots. It's just a certain few units. It's kind of like Epic 7. It's like
Yeah.
a lot on speed boots, but a lot. There's going to be a few units that don't. Like you know, like if your push DPS, if you're running like a Bronya, probably won't need that much speed boost unless or a speed boot unless you're like running like Sele, who's
Yeah, I have my Sele at 132 and
yeah,
my
unless
Bronya's
you're
at like 129 or something.
yeah,
So
unless
Sele
you're
goes,
the
she pushes.
Well, the nice thing too with like speed boots, right, is like a lot of those planar ornaments require like a certain speed threshold, and like even on some of the like really slow units, just a speed main stat boot, like a legendary speed main stat boot, is going to get you pretty much there. Like I think when I was looking at it, like mathematically, like there's only like 3 or 4 units that wouldn't hit the like 120 speed threshold without like, you know, with just a main stat
yeah.
boot. Like I think Quara and like 2 or 3 others, like because there's like a couple characters that are like in the 90-92 range. And
Yeah,
it's like,
Poke I believe
yeah,
is in there too.
yeah, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I just get like a speed substat on 1 or 2 pieces of gear and I'm good, you know? So I definitely
Do we
still think, yeah.
know?
Go ahead.
Do we know min max rolls on this game?
No, I
Yeah.
don't
Well, so we
I
did.
don't know.
Like
We
I know crit chance, crit damage, and attack percent, HP, all that we have, but does
Yeah.
anyone know max speed rolls?
So I think that they changed it, but the Pridwin site did have the closed beta data on the min max rolls, but I don't know if that has changed into
I don't think it
into
probably hasn't
retail.
changed.
Well,
'Cause,
I
like,
know that
Epic
they changed a
7
few things, but yeah.
Epic 7 for a long time, people thought that 4 speed was the max. Then some guy randomly hit the 5 speed one day, and we're like, wait, you can
Yeah.
get 5 speed? And it changed everything.
True. Yeah, no, I'm not too sure, and I mean, it'd be nice if, you know, if they actually just put those numbers out like on their own wiki, but I don't think that they have that up there. Um so yeah, I mean, I'd have to look around, but I'm sure that it won't take too long before people
Yeah,
snag
until we figure it
like
out.
a whole bunch of extra numbers and stuff like that. But I know that Pridwin had, like I said, they had like the beta min max numbers. Um, but again, I don't know if that has changed, but I'm sure that as things go, we'll get a whole bunch of nerds that'll data crunch all of that for us.
Yeah, I ain't doing that part. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, nah, I'm not min maxing until I get late in the game. It's
right.
like that anyway.
Well, I mean, like early on, like
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's really not that big of a deal to like just do whatever. Like min
Yeah.
maxing things, you know, it's whatever. I mean, obviously, like for me, I'm probably not gonna like. I've got a lot of fuel left. I haven't used a whole lot of my fuel. That's why I'm kind of behind a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
Um,
me too. Dude.
but I'm probably not going to use it until like 40 when I can start getting potentially like some legendaries, or I mean, I'm probably not going to save all of it till like 50. That's a long ways down the road.
Yeah.
You know, I
So-
kind of want to,
Yeah,
but
I'm still.
you know, yeah.
So my idea was using those early to get to level 40 faster. Just makes it to where you can use your daily refresh stamina to farm those anyway. So
Mhm.
by saving them, in my opinion, it doesn't really like on that day. Yeah, you could farm more, but the thing is, I'm gonna be there. What 3-4 days before you? So all of my daily stamina that I regenerate is gonna be used on that anyway.
Mhm.
So all in all, the math comes out where it's basically gonna be the same. You're gonna farm and end up with the same amount
So I'm
at
using
that point.
all of my daily refreshes at the moment to farm stuff, but I'm not
Okay.
using the fuel because you can infinitely use fuel, right? So like when you use the Stellar Jade to do refreshes, you've only got X amount before you can't do it anymore. But like on the day that I hit 40, I can burn through 50 fuel worth of refreshes, and then
Okay.
I will catch up XP wise.
If you're using normal refreshes with the people that aren't refreshing at all and are saving all of that,
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a disservice to yourself because you're gonna have to keep burning your daily energy before you get to 40 on subpar rewards. Whereas like whenever you hit level 40, when you spend 10 to go into farm the arrowheads or whatever,
Mhm.
you have a higher rate to get more.
True.
So you like burning your stuff in my mind makes more sense if you're playing a lot. If you're playing casually, then just
Yeah,
I don't know, it
I'm.
doesn't
I'm,
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
is
be
what it is.
honest. I am currently very, very casual in terms of the way I'm approaching it, because since I've experienced it so many damn times, I know when I'm gonna hit that stopgap where it's just like, wow, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's content like Simulated Universe, but there's not like, just like all this stuff to read and all this stuff to do. It's just like, I'm gonna admit, I'm taking it very, very casually at the moment.
Yeah,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're a
Yeah, for
story-driven player, I highly suggest taking it casual.
Oh yeah.
Especially because there is no story. We're waiting for the next update, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, after you finish the main story. I mean, there's still like all the side stories, talking to trash cans, teleporting toilets.
Dude,
The you know,
did you see the closet lore?
oh yeah, the dude,
That
the
would jump-
so good. Yeah, and the thing is, right?
Sure.
So like this was one of the big things that like I really harped on like when I first started, like when I got through the closed beta, right? And I did like this is my opinions of the game, was the small stuff that they do in this game. Not even small stuff, but like they had to have hired like a homie that just writes fan fiction and D&D campaigns for a living for like half of this stuff, because there's like a college level dissertation about like you walk into a phone book and it's or a phone booth and it's just like, here is like an entire story about how bad you are and how you'll never see your kid, and you're just sitting there and you're like, I don't know what story just happened, but I feel bad about whatever it is that I did, and now I'm never going to see my daughter. But like somebody had to write like this giant
Wait.
backstory for like every
Yep.
trash can as well.
Oh, go ahead.
I thought ChatGPT wrote the whole story.
I mean, maybe.
That's
Maybe.
what I heard. Okay, never mind.
I had a great time with this one. It was literally that, the what is it, sensitive beings or something like that.
Yeah.
Dude, if you read one of the logs, it's literally just an entire mountain of cat videos that they were searching.
Oh
It was
yeah.
like how to love a
Yep.
cat, how to pet a cat. I was like, what is this, dude?
Oh
It
yeah.
was so goofy. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah,
There's
somebody
just so
says
many
each
small
trash
things
can
in
in
this game.
Honkai Star Rail has a similar amount of lore as a character in E7.
He's right. He's
True. Yeah, but no, like,
not wrong.
yeah, sometimes like you'll just pick up like a book, it'll be like, oh, here's like a book, quick read this, and I'm like, quick read, this is like 7 chapters in like a novel. I'm like, homie was writing the Lord of the Rings Return of the Kings here about some cat videos, and then it got corrupted because they went to like some make money rich quick and buy more cats, and you're like, what is even going on right now in this? I'm like,
Oh,
yeah.
It absolutely lost it, dude. I don't know who wrote it, but it was actually quite funny. It was just overall, it was just absolutely. We have so many like the fiction references, like just literally 42 Heisenberg. It was like, I couldn't, dude.
Hats off to like the localization team on a lot of those. Like, I mean, I've had my gripes about localization teams in the past, like with Fate Grand Order using like really fucking stupid memes like yeet and calling people zoomers, but I haven't ran into anything too super cringe so far that wasn't like cringe funny. And when I get a character that tells me to Yamate Kuda stop a moment, then I'll be like, bro, come on. Yeah, dude, chill out with that. Yeah, but I mean, overall, like, I've just really been enjoying it. And like, this is small stuff, like I've talked about before, how like every character has a different footstep sound based on like their shoes or shoes that they're not wearing.
Oh, I know this one. Clara has barefoot sound.
Yep, Cora has barefoot sounds. Hook has different sounds because she's wearing like the weird like platform shoes. Ting Yun has different footsteps than Asta because Ting Yun is wearing like heels, whereas Asta's wearing like flats. The different dudes have different sounds of their feet based on the different shoe that they're wearing and what surface they're wearing those shoes on. And it's like when you really like hammer into that, like you turn the music all the way down, sound effects up, you're like, who noticed this? Who was like, man, we're gonna change this because that one dude who's on stream is gonna be like, wait a second, this bridge makes a boingy sound. And then you're like, all right, I got to dig into the rest of this. Wait, hold on. This character's got heals and they make a different sound on this than they do on that. It's so crazy.
You want to know their attention to detail? And I'm going to confirm this right now to make sure that I'm going to make sure I'm not saying something dumb. Dampo does not leave footprints in the snow.
Yeah, because he's got snow.
Because he's got that snow thing.
Yep.
The lore wise.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually just so insane, the attention to detail. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and the thing,
world.
the crazy thing is it's like, it's one of those things where you're not going to notice it most of the time until somebody else points it out. And then you're going to be like, wait a second, that's holy shit, dude. Like, whoa, that's crazy. Or it's just, you're just going to be sitting there one day and you're going to be like, bro, wait, hold on. Why is this homie not put any footprints down? And you're going to be like, wait a second.
Yeah, it's just
hold on. It's because of this. Yeah. And it's like, those are the kind of thing, like those are the kind of small things for me that shows that the company actually kind of cares about the story, because they didn't have to do that. Like, at no point was that like a requirement, and it doesn't really like add anything to like the core game mechanics or anything along those lines. It's just a interesting small thing that you probably will completely go unnoticed until it gets noticed, and then you're like, huh, neat. Like, I didn't even know that, like, because like I knew that the train, like if you run into it, right, like in almost every other game, like if you try to run in front of a train, it'll just clip through you. It doesn't matter. No, the train will just stop and dink donk at you for eternity.
Yeah. The one in the administrative.
Yeah,
that was the one you're talking about, the little
yep.
tram car or whatever.
And depending on how fast the train is going, will determine on whether or not the brakes spark or not. So like if it just starts to slowly go and then you stand in front of it, no sparks. But if it's got a little bit of speed and you stand in front of it, it hits those brakes hard and then the brakes spark. And I'm like, this is such a small, inconsequential thing, but it's like, wow, that's neat. They took the time to put this in.
All right.
Okay, go.
I was gonna say, what complaints do you have about the game?
The gacha.
Okay.
The gacha rate is fucking terrible.
The gacha rate,
0.6% is so bad.
I went 180, dude, on Sele.
Yeah.
I was like, good lord, man. It's like it was just like Genshin. That's the same way it started. I don't know why they imported Genshin's gacha rates, but they need to stop with it, because it actually is just not good.
Yeah. Like 0.6 is such a bad feels. Like,
it's an FGO.
Yeah, FGO is like 1% to get so it's 1% to get a 5-star, and then it's like point something to get the rate up one. But you still 1% to get an actual SSR. So yeah, I guess theoretically it's worse. It's about the same to get the rate up one, kind of, maybe. But regardless, yeah, it's still real bad. And I hate 50/50s. Like if I go to 90, just give me the character. Like literally just give me the character. Thanks. Like I don't like 50/50s in anything. It's why, like, in Epic 7, I like the fact that, like, if I roll on this banner, it's the character. Like, that's it. If I get spooked before pity, it's the character. If I go to pity, well, yeah, I know you used to not have any pity, and it was real bad. And yeah,
200 courts. What is it? I don't have Nero Claudius, the bride.
Gross.
Nero bride.
Yeah,
2,200 quartz, dude, and don't have them.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, I mean, I spent, like, when Tamarin first came out, we didn't have any pity in Epic 7, and I spent entirely too much money trying to pull for Tamarin, and so it's like it's good-ish that 180 is hard pity, but man, I hate losing 50/50s.
It's an expensive pity too.
Yeah,
that's not a cheap pity.
No,
it's like, what, $400-$500.
I mean, still better than an ML5.
Still, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
So my one complaint in the game is there is no jumping. I
That
know there's no point to jump,
yes.
but when I'm running, I want to jump. I want to move around.
As somebody who plays World of Warcraft and played
One of the frenetic
Skyrim
people
and
that-
Morrowind and other games with jumping, I completely agree. You know,
If they sold jumping, I would buy it. We'll just put it that way.
I would stand in one place and just jump up and down with Ting Yin to watch her fluffy tail flop up and down over and over and over again. I would probably make a macro.
Why they didn't do it.
I would make a macro on my keyboard that would just press jump.
They did it for people like you. It's a censorship thing. I get it now. Unbelievable.
Oh, true. Well, I think that like they probably took out jumping just because like it makes the stages a little bit less breakable, right? Because now you don't have to code like vertical walls or anything like that, or people jumping on top of things.
It's a lot less work because you have to make
is.
jump animations for every character, physics animation. Like,
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot less work, but my goodness, I would love to jump.
Dude, there's so many times, where I'm just running around town and I'm like, bro, I just want to do a jump. I want to do a flip. Like, I just from that, like, it would be fun. But yeah, I completely agree. And I saw like a lot of people complain about that, and they're like, bro, why don't I have a cool glider? Why can't I jump? This doesn't feel like open world. And it's like, well, because it's limited open world. But
what if they give mounts? That could be kind of cool.
Mounts?
Some kind of customizable thing.
That would be kind of interesting.
A skateboard or like a bike, or like you have like different ones you could pick. A robot you fly on.
Yeah, I think like though the thing with like mounts, right? As like mounts are kind of like that like MMO flex, right? And if you don't show it off to somebody, like it's not as cool. But I do wish there was more customization. And I know that like people have said that like there's like housing, like kind of housing customization and stuff like that in Genshin. So I'd almost imagine that like once we get further into like the game, the train is going to like unlock and we'll probably be able to like customize our room and all that stuff, which is really what I want. Like I was actually like another gripe outside of the gacha, if it's, you know, if we want to go with something else, my gripe was that I could not customize my character. Like I couldn't customize
later.
I hope so. Like I wanted to like customize like my colors, my color pattern, you know, maybe like a little bit more of just like in general, I would very much like to have been able to have some more customization options for my main character other than just like, boom, you're 3D printed and here's a Stellaron in you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like at least let me change like my hair color or something. Go ahead.
The only thing that doesn't give me hope on that is Genshin never added anything to customize the main character.
All right, so what we do,
I just want a room, dude.
That would be good too.
It's just like I'm in the Express, and I see Don Hung's room, and then I see March's room, and I'm looking around. I'm like John Travolta memeing. I'm like, where the hell's my room?
Where's my room? It's like one of the locked doors. Yeah.
It's like, I was like, can I get mine now?
Yeah. I do like though that you're able to invite people back to the train now.
Oh yeah.
And when you talk to them, you get a whole 10
currency. I don't even care about that one really. Like I don't care about the currency. I just like having. It feels more alive, I guess, more invested when like your characters can be in an area, right? Like I like a lot of games that have like a dormitory system, and I know it's not really that big of a deal, but it's like, look, I pulled you, right? You know, I pulled you from the gacha, and or like you're part of the story. Now I have you in my area. We can like, you know, hang out, and like you can just be here on the train, and we're best friends forever, and we're just spending time together, and maybe you say some funny quips, and maybe on my birthday, you know, you'll be like, hey, happy birthday, you know? And so I think that it just like allows for extra, you know, parasocial relationship with your imaginary characters.
Yeah. Where's my lines, dude? We have lines for other people. Where's my about me? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean, like, I think overall, like, I haven't really like outside of like the customization and the gacha, like, I haven't really had too super many gripes. I mean,
it's
can.
really new into like obviously the launch, right? And so I'm sure that like once all like I think the big thing that I've seen a lot of people complain about is like, yeah, we're getting showered in currency now. How is the currency income going to be in the future? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not. I will say, I think that it was when we were playing beta. Yeah, I don't think the currency rate was very amazing, but we did have like a few things that could give us weekly income. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't that amazing, but it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as they're like, even if like the events, right? Because like you were in the beta, we had the first event, the Jing event was like literally
Oh
nothing.
yeah,
You know, for
yeah,
anybody who was like who'd played the game for more than like a couple of days, it was just like the easiest clap ever. But then we had like the Expo one, which gave us a decent amount of currency. And I think as long as they like rotate those for supplemental extra currency, plus you have once you start getting into like the chaos memories and that resets every other week, like it's going to be a while before you're really clearing that like continuously. But like, you know, you've got the Herda, the simulated universe thing. I mean, there's like a decent amount of ways to get currency, and I think it'll still be fine. I'm hoping that they
yeah.
learn their lesson from like Genshin and being like giga stingy, but we'll see. You know,
I hope it's like the Honkai Impact team doing it because they're a lot more generous with their rewards. But again, a very old game, so it might
right?
just be that.
Oh
So I
yeah,
don't
no,
know.
for sure. You know, the
Yeah,
older the game gets, the more generous they have to be in order to bring in new
yeah.
players. So,
Well, we
I
get 10
mean,
free pulls tonight
we
on the
do.
special
That's
banner.
true.
That's pretty
That's
generous.
you know, and that was one of the things that I saw some people talk about too. They're like, "Wow, you know, the game's absolutely crushing it. Are they going to actually give us anything?" Because like that was like one of the things, right? Is like we absolutely destroyed the like pre-reg things, and everyone's like, "Wow, we like absolutely dumped all over it. We like doubled it up. Like, are they going to be generous enough to like give us anything else?" And it's like they're coming out with like a 10 pull, whereas like some other games would be like, wow, that's really cool, here's like 2 refreshes and like a third of a pull, thanks
Three leads
guys.
for 100K.
He
Oh,
leaves it 100K. Yeah, here's the code, by the way. Yeah, so it's nice, and I hope that they continue down that path of like generosity, because I mean, it's not like giving away a 10 pull is going to stop people from spending money on the game. It's not like you're going to get a free 10 pull on the special banner and you're going to be like, oh, well, I'm never going to spend money on this game again because, well, I got everything that I've ever wanted and everything that I've ever needed in that 10 pull. But the more generous that they are, the more you're going to be like, maybe you're closer to like a pity or something like that,
Yeah,
you know, and you're going to be like,
that's how I
oh,
see it.
well, you know, damn,
By
I've got
giving
this.
by
Yeah.
giving more currency, especially at the launch of a game, it gets people more attached to their accounts. So you're either gonna get more attached to your accounts and have a bunch of characters and want to get more, or you're gonna be close to pity you want to spend. I feel like giving more currency, I don't, especially at the beginning, I think helps longevity of a game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure, because it does get people more psychologically attached to the game. But we've been talking for like an hour and a half. So we're gonna probably wrap it up here. I know Red's gotta go do some stuff, but any closing remarks, Deity?
Oh, sorry. Not really. I'm gonna be streaming this game a lot, so if any
Oh
of you
yeah.
guys want to come see team building, I have every character in the game except for Ting Young, um, and 2 5 stars, Clara and Shield Guy, Japard. That's all I'm missing right now, so I should be able to come up with some pretty good stuff very quickly. I think within like 5 days, my team comp should be really fun. But other than that, not really. That's all I got.
Hell yeah, I'm looking
Thank you
forward to
for
it.
having me on. Give me something to do today.
Yeah, no problem, dude. You know, and who know, we'll see. Maybe you can come back in 2 weeks if you're free. Since I'll try to do this every other week so that we can catch up on everything. Red, what do you got? Closing out for us?
Well, I appreciate you for having me on, brother. As he said, I'm also going to be streaming quite a bit of this game. I usually do it after Epic 7, though. But I'm looking forward to what Star Rail really has to put out later. Obviously, we've been through this. I've been through this game 5 times already, or 4 times, because but I do believe genuinely the game is only going to get better. So I'm actually looking forward to what we got in the future. So. Yeah,
Cool.
that's really all I got to say about it.
Fantastic. And for anybody watching this video after the fact, once I get it edited up, all of Red and Deity's information will be down in the description. So if you do want to go check those guys out, it will be down there. But for the Final Stop podcast, I'm Shotgun Shogun. And well, if you liked this and you actually sat through an hour and a half of this, like, favorite, and subscribe. And we'll be back in probably 2 weeks from whenever this is edited and put up for the next episode of the podcast. And again, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the scope of 2 weeks, because usually that's like when the honeymoon phase ends. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy, homies. Peace out.